Our next guests were the first British band after the Beatles in the 1960s to reach #1 in the United States with the song She's Not There. And they are Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. They are here at South by Southwest for the first time ever for their documentary feature called Hung Up on a Dream. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up to the rock stars, the Zombies, Hall of Famers.
Thank you.
We got Rod Argent, Colin, we got Chris White, Hugh Grundy, better known as the Zombies, and joined by this director, this young man by the name of Robert Schwartzman. Give it up for Robert.
Come on. Thank
you. Gentlemen, welcome. It is a joy and a pleasure. I went on YouTube yesterday and I said, the Zombies, because I just wanted, and I was listening to the songs, and I was telling Robert right before you all came on, I don't think Americans appreciate how your musical footprint is everywhere. I mean, it is in all the commercials, the jingles, the movies, the TV shows, and they're like, da 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 da. Oh yeah, I know that song. It was the Zombies.
It was, yeah.
And you sit there in this aspect of your life, with the mileage and the wisdom, you reflect back, a couple of blokes, working class folks, from Britain, travel the world, and now you hear that jingle, and you're like, I did that. How do you reflect on that, hearing those songs now at this stage of your life?
It's terrific, actually, and the thing is, unbelievably, it still seems to be growing, and with a young audience as well. Colin and I have got a current version of the band that we tour with all the time.
Hey, what about these guys? They look spry and healthy.
Well, they are, but
They are,
they sort of, they haven't been with us for some time. But
we have done tours, of course.
Yeah.
We'll get to that, absolutely.
Yeah, but unbelievably, we always have a young component in the audience as well as older people. And I'm not being ageist. I don't care who comes to see us, but it's wonderful when you do get a young component in the audience because you get so much energy back. And
speaking about a young component, right next to you, got Robert.
I was gonna say it's so crazy because I was one of those like young fans in the audience before we all connected, because I went to see the Zombies many times when they would play in Los Angeles and New York. So yeah, I was in that audience singing along, feeling goosebumps, just with excitement for how much I love this music. So
there was an album. Let me read it. It's a small album. Odyssey and Oracle. Have you heard of it? Yes, yeah. Rolling Stone said it was one of the greatest albums of all time. And speaking about that album, young buck Robert, you said, quote, that album is the soundtrack of my life. Quote, it inspired me to start writing songs and chase the dream of being in a band. Wow.
do you guys know that? No. Now they know.
Now they know.
It's a big.
We did our research.
It's a very intense quote. No, it's true. Yeah, I mean, that album, it's such a, it's hard. When you have an album, which is a lost kind of art today, because it's all about just songs and one-off songs and remixes, which is great. But, the art of making an album with an idea, with a through line and a feeling that's sustained through the whole thing is an amazing thing. When you have those albums, you can just push play and walk away from it. So for me, I mean, that was, I tune into just like, if it's good music, I want to hear it.
It's ageless, timeless.
It really is. And I mean, it's a great lesson just that, if you really, as Rod always says, like, do it for real, it's true. I mean, if it comes from the heart and there's a pure love of what you're doing, it'll hopefully it becomes a timeless contribution to music.
I love the journey, because we're sitting here, we're like, oh, the Zombies, Hall of Famers, rock and roll. But when that album, Odyssey and Oracle, came out,
Nothing.
And to the point where I read that we're like, well, I guess the band's done, and you're selling insurance then? Apparently you just left? What happened? Someone just left the band and started just working then?
Well, that was the thing. There was just no interest in the band or in Odyssey and Oracle when we finished it in 1967. And particularly the three non-writers all had to get jobs. It is true, I ended up in an insurance office. Please don't ask me how I ended up there. I know nothing about insurance.
You had to eat.
I had to eat, but I never sold insurance because I didn't understand it. I worked in an office.
You're the worst insurance salesman of all time.
They would be my bosses, That first day I had to go into an insurance office and I sat down and the phone rang. And all I know is the music business and the Zombies. And someone calls me and says, you know, what do I do with my... I was working in the burglary department. Wow. What I don't know, what burglary department? I thought we're arranging burglaries at one time. So anyway, this person asked me a question. There's one thing the music business teaches you to do is to bluff. And I spent 6 months bluffing it in an insurance office.
But it's, I mean, that's so remarkable. No one would have think that this album comes, it drops a masterpiece, a future masterpiece. Slowly but surely starts rising up.
Yes.
The band breaks up, the band's got to eat. When did you know, Hugh, that, oh, the band's got to get back together?
I think in my heart of hearts, I would have loved it to have continued. But I know that the guys sitting in front of me here now had other plans, and I appreciate that. So at that time, I took several jobs, and but after that, I actually managed to get a job at CBS Records. And
You stayed somewhat close to the industry.
Yeah, and it's never ever gone away, and I've always continued playing in various bands, and I play in a band now where I live, and you'll see that in the documentary. What a great documentary. And they came to film me in Menorca, where I live now, which is an island in the Mediterranean, Spanish island. And,
the painful life of the Menorca island.
Yes, it's the
how we
hardest
suffer
life.
there. Yeah.
Wine, a bottle of €5 a bottle. It's a hard life.
Yeah. But you're speaking about the film, and Chris, when someone comes to you, a young buck like Robert, and says, you know what? I'm the filmmaker for your life and journey, and I'm going to put it on the screen. You know, how do you build that trust? And this is for all of you, but I'll start with you. How do you build that trust? Like, I'm going to give this footage, my story, to this person.
It's an instinct, really, basically. It's like when you're writing songs, and you meet somebody and you trust what they do and they say. And I must say, he's done an incredible job. I've seen it 5 times now, so it's fantastic.
That's good. When they see it 5 times, that's just not vanity. That means
no. It was. I was always slightly nervous about documentaries, but it was so accurate and very emotional as well. You know,
I love origin stories. So we can sit here with hindsight and say, oh, zombies, Hall of Famers, right? But the humble beginnings, Rod, how did it start? How did the band get together for the first time?
The quick story, and the quick version of the story, is that when I was 11 years old, I was at my cousin's house, Jim Rodford, 4 years older than me. He was later in the Kinks, on their biggest ever selling records.
Kinks, respect for the Kinks.
Yeah, respect
Great band.
for the Kinks, absolutely. And he was founder member of Argent with me, which was a successful second band that I had. He played me Elvis when I was 11, singing Hound Dog. And I hadn't heard anything like it at the time, and it blew me away. I saw some footage of him, and it was like this magic land of America, where they had this wonderful music, and Little Richard and Jerry Lee, and very soon after that, Ray Charles, and some of the great black artists we were exposed to because of Elvis, actually, strange enough. It led you into other...
Because Elvis was so inspired by black artists
Absolutely,
himself.
Yeah. Jim was in one of the first bands in the south of England. I went along to see him, and I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to be part of the real thing, you know, like with Elvis and everything. But as soon as I'm old enough and anyone wants to join, I'm going to have to try and form a band. When I was 15, I walked into a classroom where I was meeting a friend of mine, and in the corner was somebody playing in the folk club, and that was Paul Atkinson. And I thought, well, he's playing folk music, but there's something about a really good groove that he's got. You know?
Felt it, instinct.
I felt absolutely, totally with the instinct, and it was the same with you, actually. And I said to him, do you want to be in a band? He said, yeah, I don't mind. So
as one does.
I said, okay. I thought, great, right, we started. And that
you got 2.
Yeah,
that's a band.
2. And then almost, and then 2 days later, we had an army marching corps at the school. And I picked the drummer, who sounded like he got the best sense of rhythm, going dum bum 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 bum. It's just
Heard
that.
It.
And I went up to Hugh and said, "Do you want to be in a band?" He said, "Yeah, don't mind if I do." So I thought, God, almost there. 3 down. So I went to my friend that night, who lived close to where I live, and I said, "You were building a bass guitar, weren't you?" He'd never played a note of any instrument in his life, and he said, "Yeah." I said, "How's it going?" He said, "It's finished." I said, "Brilliant, we've got a band. We'll have to have a first rehearsal." He said, "I've got a mate at school who sings a bit, and but he plays guitar, because I was supposed to be the singer then." And I said, "Well, okay." And then Jim lent us all his equipment for the first rehearsal. I met Cole and everybody else. Not Chris.
Oh,
Chris
I
joined a
came
year
later.
later, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah.
My friend actually left to become a doctor, but and that was the start of the band. And it was very much as Dave Grohl said, which I think is wonderful advice. He said, "Listen, you should just get a group of friends, go into a garage and suck." And we certainly did for a while, but it.
Don't suck now.
But magically, it all started to come together. We started to build a really big following around St Albans. And it started from there. Won a big competition, got a record contract with Decca. And with that naivety and arrogance that you always have when you're very young.
Yes,
You don't know
yes.
any of the pitfalls, you know. I thought, yeah, I can write a song that's going to be as good as the Beatles, you know. And
you did.
And
you all did.
And unbelievably, and I thought Colin would sound great singing. I didn't know any of the pitfalls of recording or how things could go wrong. And it all turned out like a dream. And as you said it in your introduction, we went to #1, made the 9 o'clock news as being the first English group after the Beatles to have a #1 with a self-written song.
I want to ask about it because I think now it's common. The world's globalized.
Yeah.
And what I find fascinating is it's just these kids
We
in
were.
Britain listening to Black American music.
Absolutely.
Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And we won't ever be able to cross over the Atlantic. Who are we? And just Colin, just to put it in perspective for this young generation that doesn't appreciate it, when you young blokes from England found out that your song hit #1 in the United States of America, what kind of a deal was it back in the day?
Well, it's absolutely huge because all British musicians want to work in America. This is the home of the blues, jazz, rhythm and
And you're in
blues,
Austin right now.
and rock and roll. This is where it all started, and British musicians are very aware of that. I used to feel quite guilty coming here and playing rock and roll music to Americans. I wanted to stop in the middle of songs and say, this is your music, because obviously in the 60s, British bands used to get mobbed. There were people, thousands of people are screaming at us, and I honestly felt quite guilty and wanted to say, this is your music. But it has gone, we talk about this, it has actually gone through a sort of a filter when it goes through the UK and we bring it back. And I think we kind of reintroduced the blues to the American people. I don't think they would.
This is your music. It's really good. You should appreciate it. That's kind of how it is.
It's okay, but you know, we were just so influenced by American musicians. We really were, and this is the place that every British musician wants to come and play.
What the documentary, Robert?
Yeah.
You know, you have to capture all of this, and so the decision then is, okay, how am I going to capture the lives of all these folks and the music and the historical arc within a narrative? Like, how do you make the decision to capture, what to leave out?
It's true. You know, I will say one thing, but it's really, I never had said this before, but it's interesting because I learned through the documentary that they were influenced by American music and then brought it back, and they were nervous about what would this audience feel about us bringing it back. And it's funny because I started a band as well, and I was influenced by British music. And then when I went to England, I felt really nervous that I thought audiences there would think, oh, they're just doing like a watered down version of British music. So I was really insecure about playing there.
It's even the Beatles, right? The same thing. Without Twist and Shout, without Chuck Berry, there's nothing.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it's something that we don't appreciate when something's homegrown.
Yeah,
And then when that person leaves and the world appreciates it, go, oh, hey, I know that kid.
Yeah.
And when you were at home, Hugh, when the record's finally going up, were those friends like, I always believed in you? Or were they like, what the heck, this song?
Well, it came in the 70s, yeah.
I rather think, what the heck, actually.
So it took years. It took years to get their respect at home.
Yeah, yes, I think it did. I mean,
Wow.
we worked our socks off playing in the local halls, and I seem to remember playing in a stocking factory called Bolito's in St Albans many times, and then we graduated to playing at a local school's rugby club ground.
That's when you make it. When you make the rugby game.
Because it just got bigger and bigger and bigger there, to the point where they had to put a marquee on the side of the pavilion we were playing in to accommodate all the people, and they were just great nights. That was playing rock and roll.
But just one quick thing, very quick thing. We found out many years later that when we went over in '64, being worried about playing this, what we thought was possibly American, Elvis had our singles on his jukebox.
Oh.
So that was 8 years after I saw this mythical being you know, 8 years later, he was playing our music.
Did you, when you found out that Elvis, I'll ask all of you this, but I'll start with you. When you found out that Elvis was playing your music, did you just say, "Excuse me, I have something in my eye"? Did you just go cry in the corner? What happened?
We were amazed, Cole, weren't we?
Absolutely amazed.
Because we actually went round to his house,
We
didn't we?
were doing an interview with a DJ, and at the end of the interview, the DJ just said, "Would you like to pop round and see Elvis?" Just really casual.
Casual, as one does.
I know. It was bizarre, and we did. And there was no security. We walked through those famous iron gates at Graceland, walked up the path to the front door. We knocked on the front door, and we've never really established whether it was his father or his uncle. Opened the door and said, "Unfortunately, Elvis is in Hawaii, but he would have loved to have seen you guys."
So he loves you guys.
Yeah.
And we thought,
But as he's not here, just have a look around, have a walk around, whatever you want. No security. It was very, very.
Chris, did you take anything? You could tell us now. I think the statute of limitation has passed.
But I went
took
to a
something.
party at Eric Burden's in Beverly Hills years later when I was working with Rod's group Argent, and I met him at the bar in Eric Burden's house, and he said, "Oh, yeah, the Zombies, you did this song Time of the Season," and sang it to me a cappella at the bar.
When you get that, when you get this, when you get peers,
Yeah.
your own age, like, does it still hit you? Because I think that sometimes when we look at fame as fans, we're like, oh, they're probably used to it, right? We sometimes separate the fact that you're human beings.
Yeah.
You have feelings, vulnerabilities, insecurities.
Too right.
But when you hear a peer say, "That was the Time of the Season, that was a great song."
Yeah.
oh, it's an extraordinary feeling, isn't
Yeah,
it?
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I
But I
mean-
think we're all modest people. I've got to be honest with you.
Modest-ish.
I don't.
Except this guy.
Except this guy, who's.
Yeah.
We feel that we're modest enough. I don't feel that name. You're famous.
Yeah.
You're a rock star. You're this. You're that. I'm just Hugh Grundy, and
Well, you're Hugh Grundy, part of the Zombies. You guys are still kicking it. Tell me about the tour. Who wants to tell me about the tour that's happening?
Well, we're going to be traveling around. No, I'm just kidding. No, I joke that I just joined the band.
When South by Southwest is finished, we're going to be touring across the southern states. Then we're going to go on a music-themed cruise called Flower Power with a lot of other classic rock bands. And then we go straight back to the UK. We've got 3 days off, and we have a month on the road in the UK, which will take us through to the end of the first week of May.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be so exhausted.
I'm
But,
amazed. I'm amazed at these guys. Your energy, you chaps. I mean,
Slackers.
Yes.
and I'm just
It's incredible.
sunning it in Menorca.
At this time in our lives that we're touring like this, I mean, we just think it's absolutely wonderful. It's not what we were expecting at all at this time in our lives,
But it's a gift that has come through a lifetime of work and love and passion.
it has, actually.
And you have gifted us with great songs. And I have a shameless request. And you could say no, even though we're live. We have fans. This is Austin. This is South by Southwest. This is a music town. We love music. If you can, an a cappella version, anything, of Time of the Season.
Rod and Colin.
Well, the thing is, that's very high, isn't it, Cole? So we
I
have to
know.
warm up and everything before doing that, really.
I can give it a go.
Give it a go.
This is one of the things we do. We warm up for 45 minutes before we perform.
We are
Always.
the easiest audience, and we will applaud anything.
Okay.
Here we go.
No one told me about her, the way she lied. No one told me about her, how many people cried. But it's too late to say you're sorry. How would I know? Why should I care? Please don't bother trying to find her. She's not there. Well, let me tell you about the way she looked, the way she acted, the color of her hair. Voice is going. Her voice was soft and cool. Her eyes were clear and bright, but she's not there.
Really unwarmed up.
It was totally shameless on my part. I don't apologize for a second.
That was good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Robert.
thank you.
Congratulations. I'm so glad that you're still around, kicking, playing, having fun, and being justly applauded for the music that we still all enjoy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hung Up on a Dream premieres tonight, March 12th at 5:30 at the ZAC Theater, and will screen again at the ZAC on March 17th at 2:15 p.m. You can see our complete schedule of upcoming studio interviews on our website at sxsw.com/studio, and these interviews are live streaming during the event on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/sxsw. I'm your host, Wajat Ali, and thank you for watching.